the Cleveland Browns are in absolute emergency mode after two massive bombshells leaked simultaneously on Monday morning that are threatening to destroy everything the organization has been building, and that reveal connections to the hostile takeover conspiracy that just brought down Kevin Stefanski and multiple other NFL consultants. According to sources with direct knowledge of the leaked information, bombshell number one is that Andrew Berry himself was approached by representatives of the gambling syndicate approximately 8 months ago and was offered a massive financial package to become part of their scheme. And while Berry refused and reported the approach to league security, the Browns never disclosed this publicly and now face questions about whether they should have been more transparent about infiltration attempts targeting their organization. On bombshell number is aiding to sources who've seen the leaked documents. Deion Sanders' advisory contract with Cleveland includes a clause that was secretly negotiated without Berry's knowledge that gives Deion a percentage of any increase in the Browns' franchise valuation. That occurs during his advisory period, essentially making Deion a shadow equity partner who profits massively if the Browns become more valuable, which explains why Deion was so aggressive about controlling Shedder's landing spot and why Jimmy Haslam has been so reluctant to cut ties with Deion despite all the chaos. The free agency hostile takeover element comes from the revelation that the same gambling syndicate that was manipulating draft outcomes is now targeting free agency by having embedded operatives manipulate which teams pursue which players to create betting opportunities on free agent destinations. And according to sources, the Browns are ground zero for this free agency manipulation because of their cap space, their need for a quarterback, and their organizational chaos making them vulnerable to outside influence. The first bombshell about Andrew Berry being approached by the gambling syndicate leaked on Monday morning, March 2nd, 2026, through a report published by a major investigative sports journalism outlet that has been tracking the hostile takeover conspiracy story since it broke. According to sources familiar with the reporting, the journalists obtained internal NFL security documents showing that Berry reported an approach to league security to someone claiming to represent a sports investment consortium contacted Berry through an intermediary and requested a private meeting to discuss mutually beneficial opportunities related to draft strategy and player evaluation. According to sources who've been briefed on the details of this approach, Berry agreed to the meeting but immediately suspected something inappropriate was happening based on how the request was phrased. According to sources, Berry attended the meeting which took place at a restaurant in Cleveland. And during that meeting, the representatives allegedly explained that they were working with multiple NFL teams to optimize draft outcomes, and that they could offer Berry substantial compensation. Sources say the number discussed was approximately $5 million over 3 years to provide them with information about the Browns' draft plans and to potentially influence those plans in ways they would specify, according to sources. Andrew Berry ended the meeting immediately when he realized this was a corrupt scheme, and he reported the approach to NFL security within 24 hours. According to sources, Berry provided NFL security with names, contact information, and details about what was discussed. But, according to sources, the NFL's investigation into the approach apparently didn't lead anywhere at the time because the league couldn't verify the identities or locate the people involved. And the matter was eventually closed with a notation in Berry's file that he had properly reported a suspicious contact, but that no further action was warranted. The problem for the Browns and for Berry now, according to sources familiar with how this bombshell is being received, is that the organization never disclosed publicly that they've been targeted by this scheme. And now that the full hostile takeover conspiracy has been exposed, people are questioning why the Browns stayed silent. According to sources, critics are arguing that if Berry had gone public with the approach when it happened, it might have helped expose the conspiracy earlier before it did as much damage. But, according to sources, defenders of Berry and the Browns argue that Berry did exactly what he was supposed to do by reporting to league security, and that it was the league's responsibility to investigate and expose the broader conspiracy, not the Browns. The emergency status this creates for Cleveland stems from the fact that, according to sources, federal investigators who are now looking into the hostile takeover conspiracy have contacted Berry and have asked him to provide testimony and documentation about the approach he received. According to sources, while Berry is not suspected of any wrongdoing and is actually viewed as a witness who did the right thing, the publicity around his involvement and the questions about whether the Browns should have disclosed more information publicly are creating unwanted attention and distraction at the worst possible time as the team tries to finalize their draft strategy and prepare for free agency. The second bombshell about Deion Sanders having a secret equity clause in his advisory contract is even more explosive. According to sources who've seen the leaked contract language, according to sources, the provision that was included in Deion's contract gives him 0.5% of any increase in the Browns' franchise valuation during the term of his advisory agreement as measured by annual Forbes valuations or by actual sale price if the team is sold during that period. According to sources, this clause was added during final contract negotiations at Jimmy Haslam's personal insistence and without the knowledge or approval of Andrew Berry or the Browns' legal team, who normally review all contracts. According to sources familiar with how this clause was discovered, it came to light during the broader investigation into the hostile takeover conspiracy when investigators were examining Browns' financial records and contracts to determine if there were any unusual arrangements that might indicate infiltration. According to sources, when investigators found the Deion equity clause and asked Browns executives about it, Andrew, Berry, and others were shocked because they'd never been told it existed. According to sources, when they confronted Jimmy Haslam about why he added this clause secretly, Haslam allegedly admitted that Deion demanded it as a condition of signing the advisory contract, and that Haslam agreed because he wanted to guarantee that Deion would be fully committed to making the Browns successful. The financial implications of this secret equity clause are staggering, according to sources who've done the math. According to sources, the Cleveland Browns were valued by Forbes at approximately $5.2 billion in early 2025 before Deion joined the organization. According to sources, if the Browns' valuation increases to $5.5 billion by the time Deion's advisory period ends, which is plausible given overall NFL franchise value growth, Deion would be entitled to 0.5% of the $300 million increase, which equals $1.5 million on top of his advisory salary. But according to sources, if the Browns actually become successful and their valuation increases significantly, Deion could make tens of millions of dollars from this clause alone. But what makes this revelation truly scandalous, according to sources, is that it explains Deion's behavior throughout the pre-draft process in ways that make everything look even worse. According to sources, if Deion has a financial stake in the Browns' franchise valuation increasing, then his motivation for wanting Cheddar to succeed in Cleveland isn't just paternal pride. It's direct financial self-interest. According to sources, this creates massive conflicts of interest because Deion's advice to the Browns about quarterback strategy can't be trusted to be objective when he personally profits if the team becomes more valuable. The free agency hostile takeover element that connects these two bombshells emerged from leaked documents showing that the gambling syndicate has expanded its operations beyond draft manipulation to include free agency manipulation, according to sources familiar with the investigation. According to sources, the scheme works similarly to the draft scheme but targets free agent signings instead. According to sources, the syndicate places large bets on which teams will sign which free agents. And then there embedded operatives try to influence teams to pursue or avoid certain players to make their bets more likely to pay off, according to sources who've reviewed the syndicate's communications. The Cleveland Browns are specifically identified a target for free agency manipulation because of several factors. According to sources, the Browns have significant cap space, which makes them active players in free agency. They're desperate for a quarterback, which makes them predictable and potentially manipulatable. And their organizational chaos and the Deion situation create vulnerabilities that can be exploited. According to sources, the syndicate's plan was to use embedded operatives or influencers to steer the Browns toward or away from certain free agents based on where the syndicate had placed bets on those players' destinations. The specific mechanism for free agency manipulation involves what sources describe as a network of consultants, advisors, agents, and media influencers who are either paid members of the syndicate or who are being manipulated without knowing they're part of a scheme. According to sources, these operatives create narratives about players, leak false information about contract demands or team interest, and generally manipulate the information environment around free agency to create opportunities for profitable betting positions. For example, according to sources who've studied the syndicate's methods, if they wanted Kirk Cousins to sign with Cleveland because they had large bets on him landing there, their operatives would leak stories suggesting that Cleveland is Cousins' preferred destination, that the Browns are willing to pay top dollar, and that other teams are backing off. According to sources, these narratives become self-fulfilling because they influence how teams and agents perceive the market, and by creating the appearance of momentum toward a certain outcome, the syndicate can actually make that outcome more likely to happen. The emergency meetings happening inside the Browns organization on Monday are focused on two priorities, according to sources familiar with the discussions. According to sources, the first priority is damage control around the Andrew Berry bombshell, with the team preparing statements emphasizing that Berry did everything correctly, and that the Browns cooperated fully with league security. And according to sources, the second priority is figuring out what to do about the Deion equity clause revelation, with Berry and Browns attorneys arguing that the clause should be voided because Haslam negotiated it without proper authority and because it creates conflicts of interest that make Deion's advisory role untenable. Jimmy Haslam's position on the Deion equity clause is reportedly defensive and resistant to voiding it, according to sources who've spoken with people close to Haslam. According to sources, Haslam argues that he had full authority as owner to negotiate whatever terms he wanted with Deion, that the equity clause was his idea, not Deion's, as a way to align incentives, and that trying to void it now would create massive legal problems and would make the Browns look incompetent. But, according to sources, Andrew Berry and the Browns' legal team are telling Haslam that keeping the equity clause in place while Deion is advising on football decisions is ethically indefensible and potentially illegal, depending on how securities and partnership laws apply. The NFL league office's reaction to these two Browns bombshells has been to add Cleveland to the list of teams under enhanced scrutiny as part of the broader hostile takeover investigation, according to sources familiar with league operations. According to sources, NFL security officials have told the Browns that they need to provide complete documentation of all consultant and advisor relationships, all contract negotiations involving Deion or anyone else who has influence over football decisions, and all communications between Browns personnel and anyone connected to sports betting or gambling interests. According to sources, the league is treating the Browns not as suspects, but as potential victims who need to be protected from further infiltration or manipulation. The impact on the Browns' free agency strategy from these revelations is significant, according to sources within the organization. According to sources, Andrew Berry has told his staff that they need to be extremely careful about any information they receive from external sources about free agent interest or contract terms, and that they should verify everything through direct communication with agents rather than relying on media reports or consultant advice. According to sources, Barry is also conducting internal reviews of everyone in the organization who has any role in personnel decisions to ensure there are no other conflicts of interest or compromised individuals. The reaction from other NFL teams too. Learning about the Browns situation has been a mix of sympathy and concern, according to sources who've spoken with executives around the league. According to sources, several teams have reached out to Barry privately to share their own experiences with suspicious approaches or with consultants, who they now suspect might have been part of the hostile takeover scheme. But, according to sources, there's also concern among some teams that the Browns' organizational chaos and the Deion situation might have made them more vulnerable to manipulation than better run organizations would have been. Deion Sanders' response to the revelation about his secret equity clause has been silenced so far, according to sources. Monitoring his communications. According to sources, Deion has not posted on social media or done any media appearances since the bombshell leaked on Monday morning. According to sources, Deion's attorneys have been in contact with the Browns legal team discussing the equity clause and whether it will remain in effect. But according to sources, those discussions have not reached any resolution yet as of now. Monday afternoon, March 2nd, 2026. The Cleveland Browns are in emergency mode dealing with two massive bombshells that reveal Andrew Berry was targeted by the hostile takeover conspiracy 8 months ago, and that Deion Sanders has a secret equity clause giving him a stake in the Browns franchise valuation increase. The free agency manipulation angle of the broader conspiracy identifies Cleveland as a priority target for the gambling syndicate. The organization is scrambling to do damage control to protect their free agency strategy from manipulation and to figure out whether Deion's advisory contract can continue with the equity clause, creating massive conflicts of interest. These revelations come at the worst possible time as the Browns try to finalize their draft strategy and prepare for free agency. And they add yet another layer of chaos and uncertainty to what's already been the most tumultuous pre-draft period in franchise history to massive Browns bombshells leaked. Andrew Berry was approached by the gambling syndicate 8 months ago and reported it properly. But the Browns never disclosed it publicly. Even worse, Deion Sanders has a secret equity clause giving him 0.5% of any Browns franchise valuation increase, creating massive conflicts of interest. The free agency hostile takeover scheme identifies Cleveland as a priority manipulation target. Emergency meetings happening to void Deion's clause and protect free agency strategy. The organization is under enhanced league scrutiny as potential victims of the broader conspiracy.